This is update for August 14, 2022, day 172 of the war, end of the day update. I also cover here August 13. So first of all, I apologize for not being able to provide update yesterday. It's more related to personal situation. It's nothing to do with anything else. Going forward, I probably plan not to do updates from Saturday to Sunday nights unless there is something urgent and important. Just based on personal bandwidth, it's really nearly impossible to do it in a quality way. So now let's actually switch to actual topics. So first of all, Ukraine received four Susanna 2 self-propelled howitzers from Slovakia out of 16 that it's supposed to receive. This is another very capable self-propelled howitzer, similar to Caesar from France, which is and it has it's 152 millimeter, and the length of the barrel is 52 calibers. So again, it's in the same class as Caesars, as Crab, and as PH Panzerhaubitze 2000, PH 2000. Obviously, it's it's not tracked, so there is a little bit of disadvantage, and probably Caesars and Susanna will have hard time during the sort of fall, winter, spring, during basically cold season, and when there's when the snow is going to be melting, so it's going to be a little bit harder for them. But the key point right now is that Ukrainian army has clear advantage over Russian army in the 152 millimeter caliber self-propelled howitzers. And what that really means is that, first of all, Russia does not have any equivalent that is 152 millimeters and 52 caliber lengths. So the Russian artillery usually uses actually static 152 millimeter cannons, not even so much Star, which is more relatively modern. It's not really modern, but basically they're using D20, which is essentially equivalent of ML20, which is from like 30s. So this was the main howitzers that Soviet Union used during World War II. So this is what's being used by Russian artillery. Doesn't mean that makes it worse or anything. It's still 152 millimeter shell that's absolutely capable of destroying anything. It just explains the sort of more composition of the Russian attacking artillery or assault artillery, whatever we want to use in this case. And what we're trying to say is majority of it is static cannons that could be easily picked up and taken out by this long-range self-propelled howitzers that Ukraine has. Unfortunately, Ukrainian command is not able to use them effectively. There are many reasons. The most important is lack of skills, lack of, honestly, intelligence, too much bureaucracy. And so these extremely capable tools are basically being misused. And as a result of that, things, those breakthrough that we see, slow motion breakthrough in village Pisky, it could have been prevented, right? In similar situation in Bahmut and so on. This is something that could be very preventable, given that Russian artillery is extremely vulnerable to maneuverable attacks, given that it's all static, right? And it's relatively short range, so none of them is more than 25 kilometers. Most of them, realistically, they really like 15 to 20 kilometer range. giving the huge dispersion that they have and so on. It's really they not long range artillery by any means. So as you can see that Russian troops really using quantity versus quality, and Ukraine has enough of the quality to destroy the quantity, artillery quantity that Russia has at this moment. So that's, I think, the key point here. In addition, the second topic is Ukrainian command continues to attack the bridges near Nova Kakhovka, Antonivsky Bridge. So basically, that all of that slow motion destruction continues as it's been going on. We don't have recent updates in terms of the situation in terms of what's how damaged bridges are, but we assume that they in pretty bad shape at this moment. Also, there were attacks in Melitopol, which is also important railroad line that feeds Kherson bridgehead. So, having discussed these general topics, now let's actually move to walk through the front line in a clockwise fashion, starting from the very north. The situation along the state border is more or less the same, exchange of artillery fire, no major movements there. Now let's move to Kharkiv area. Things here also stable, more like a probing attacks, reconnaissance attacks, but this is nothing major here. Let's actually move south to Izyum bridgehead. There were a couple Russian attacks in very typical place. This Dolina Krasnopilya villages, basically along the road to Slavyansk. And then there was somewhat new attack in Novodmitrivka. Usually this place is relatively quiet. But overall situation here is stable, and they are not sort of major attacks so far, at least they look so far. Now let's actually move to North Donbass front line. So first of all, let's just kind of walk through the areas where Russian troops are attacking, all the same areas. This Ivanodarivka, and then they're attacking from Spirnet, basically kind of like south western direction. Then another one is they're attacking towards this Ukrainian stronghold Yakovlivka. They're continuing their attempts to expand their position in Soledar, and then the most important, they're attacking Bahmut, and they're making sort of very slow progress. And we don't have, unfortunately, where they exactly are. They slowly moving, we don't know, like 300 meters, 500 meters in this town somewhere. Basically, the fighting is somewhere going on somewhere on eastern outskirts of the town. Fortunately, we don't have more granular information about this. So then other areas of attacks is towards this village Zaitsevo, from village Vershina, basically in kind of like western direction towards Kadema. So all typical directions Russian attack. So far, essentially, there were no major gains, with the exception of Bahmut, where Wagner mercenaries are slowly moving forward. Again, we don't have exact sort of location. As soon as we have that, we'll provide update. So there will be probably a lot of commentaries about attack on Wagner mercenaries headquarters. Yes, there was attack. As we discussed many times before, we think all of these rocket attacks are essentially useless, ineffective, and don't change anything. The victory is always earned on actual battlefield, not hitting headquarters in the rear. And another point we always made is that all of these commanders, all of these people that drive troops on the ground, they're all replaceable cogs. They're not they're not Napoleons, they're not Rommels, they're not Mansteins. They're all very replaceable, and You lose one, you have another one tomorrow, no big deal. Saying the system continues working. So that's why we always we don't really report those. Sometimes people viewers comment why you're not reporting about this attack is because they're largely irrelevant for the war. And we just want to stress this because apparently, it's nice propaganda pictures, but that's not what changes the course of the war or decides the course of the war. Now let's move south to area west of Donetsk. So essentially at this point, the most dangerous situation is in this village Pisky, where Russian troops essentially secured all of it at this point. And what they're doing, they're continuing attacks west towards Pervomaisky. So they initiated fighting in Pervomaisky, on outskirts of Pervomaisky, as you can see. And then the more important direction of attack will be towards Vodyane. Ukrainian troops are still kind of barely holding on in this right straight north of Pisky, but we believe this two line of defenses will be quickly overrun, and the next sort of major stopping point for Russian troops will be Vodyane. And once Vodyane is lost, then it's going to be Severne and Tonenke. These 2 points are very critical. Once they captured by Russian troops, Ukrainian forces will be forced to evacuate Avdiivka. So again, let's just look. This is Avdiivka. This is main objective at this point. So the attack will be kind of going like this in, I would say, northern direction, more or less. And then also Russian troops trying to attack from the north eastern direction. So essentially, they're trying to create this salient and severe supply of the salients significantly, and force withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from here. So far, they making slow progress. Nevertheless, they made progress, and more important is actually not even more important, but it's very concerning that Russian troops are pretty much at this point fighting in Pervomaisky. That's relatively significant advance towards west from the front line. So that creates relatively, obviously everything here is very small, but relatively big penetration in Ukrainian defenses. And defenses here, the more you go towards west, the thinner they are in terms of engineering. So they are more easier to overcome. At the same time, also Russian troops command decided to renew attacks towards New York in the essentially northern direction as well. It's unclear if this is just distraction attack or it's more serious, but what is very clear is the most important part for the Russian side right now is capturing Avdiivka and basically kind of like moving in this northwestern direction from here. Also, Marinka is obviously very important, but so far Russian troops don't have major traction there. Another area of attack is here, south Pavlivka, this village south of Vugledar, and that's actually, let's move to Zaporizhia front line because it's more connected there, and it kind of provides bigger picture if we look from this perspective. So this is this attack towards Pavlivka. Then there is Russian troops renewed their attacks towards Velyka Novosilka. So what this really means is that they're also trying to renew attacks out of the southern pincer, essentially. And the biggest strongholds here, obviously, are Novosilka, this, and Vugledar. So once they eliminate, they kind of can go move forward towards north and create threat into Ukrainian flanks and so on. So they decided to exploit this opportunity here. The defenses here in terms of engineering are much obviously weaker because there is not enough time to build them so far. but there's obviously something there. So also is somewhat unclear the forces. We know it's 19th division here, 42nd. Is there more forces here? We'll probably assume there is more, since in the past balance of power was more or less even. We unfortunately don't have enough information to, in terms of what Russian units are attacking here, but it does look to us that there is more there. Now let's close with Kherson bridgehead. Things here in terms of actual fighting are more or less quiet and stable. Some weak Russian attacks to destroy this bridgehead, which still holds on. The most important topic here is always, as we discussed, at these bridges. So there were more attacks towards Antonievsky at Antonievsky Bridge, at Nova Kakhovka, that sort of small bridge over the channel, and then, as we discussed, near Melitopol. So this makes it harder and harder for Russian command to provide sort of supply to their troops on Kherson bridgehead. We're not saying that Russian defenses there are about to collapse. No, they still continue there. Nevertheless, if this remains the way it is, probably in a month or so, it will become much more harder for Russian side to maintain the defensive position there. But it's as we said many times, it's a death by thousand cuts. However, all of the situation is somewhat pale relative to the situation in North Donbass and area straight west of Donetsk. Because if there is relatively major breakthrough of Russian troops there, that creates major strategic problem for Ukrainian command and threatens with potential collapse of the front line. We're not saying it's imminent, it's not close, but it's on the table, let's put this way. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support, and until tomorrow, bye bye.